Good evening, I'm Dr. Rodriguez, and welcome. I would like to start off by thanking the PTSAs for coordinating tonight's event so that you get an opportunity to hear directly from Board of Ed candidates on a variety of issues. Jay Edwards is, as always, our favorite moderator and host for this evening, but I wanted to take a few moments to review the parameters or the expectations as well. Each candidate will begin with an opening statement. Each candidate will have approximately 2 minutes to answer questions that will be given to them this evening, and there are a total of 5 questions. None of the candidates this evening have been provided with any of the questions in advance. We will also be holding firm to a hard stop time at 8:30 p.m. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jay.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2017 Newtown Board of Education Candidates Informational Forum. My name is Jay Edwards. I'm an American Studies and Government teacher here at Newtown High School, and I will be your moderator for the evening. Tonight, it's democracy in action at the local level. We have a great opportunity to hear from candidates as they discuss their vision for Newtown Public Schools moving forward, their perspective on the role of the Board of Education, and how they would handle some of the challenges our district and community face in the future. While we have this opportunity to hear candidates' individual perspectives, as well as for our audience, I'm doing a great job being on the mic already, I can tell. While we have this opportunity, thank you, to hear candidates' individual perspectives, the format of this evening is not a debate. I'm here to remind us all. Therefore, we ask that all candidates, as well as the audience, please conduct ourselves in a professional, respectful manner. Candidates are aware that any discussion about other candidates is strictly prohibited. Please be also advised, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a non-partisan event. The Newtown PTAs and the PTSA do not endorse candidates. However, we would like to offer Newtown voters an unbiased forum to listen to prospective candidates. First off, after my introductions, each candidate will have the opportunity to respond to predetermined questions and also 2 minutes each to respond. So that hard 8:30 stoppage time, we might finish ahead of time, and that's okay too. We have a timer here in place. She's the co-president of the Hawley PTA, Karen Smiley, right here front and center. So our candidates could look toward her for your timing. Thank you very much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's meet our participants. Hopefully you grabbed a copy of the bios on the way in. Our candidates this evening, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Republican Mr. Daniel Cruson Jr. Please welcome Republican Mr. Daniel R. D'Elia. Democrat Mrs. Michelle Embry Koo. And registered write-in candidate Mrs. Deborah Zukowski. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have the mic on the table for our candidates to pass back and forth, to and fro. And first, we'd like to offer an opportunity to introduce ourselves briefly. First up, Mr. Cruson.
There we go. Hello, I'm Daniel Cruson Jr. I am a lifetime resident of Newtown. I grew up in Newtown, went through the school system. Through college, I worked for the central office with Dr. Alice Jackson, who was the assistant superintendent at that time. After college, I moved away for a bit, came back because we wanted my wife and I wanted our sons to attend Newtown schools, so I came back and joined the Board of Ed. Got to kind of have a nice broad perspective from all of that work, and I had a chance to put it to work for the past year and a half or so on the Board of Ed. So I'm looking forward to answering questions and continuing to make my perspectives known, and letting everyone get to know me.
Thank you, Mr. Cruson. Next up, Mr. D'Elia.
Hi everybody, I'm Dan D'Elia. I've lived in Newtown now for 21, 22 years. My wife and I moved here when we were in our 20s. Started out as an accountant, didn't love it. Had the opportunity to stay at home with my children and raise them, which was a joy. And that's when I got invested in education. Went to night school, became a teacher, and now I'm also a certified administrator. I'm not a politician. I don't have any aspirations beyond the Board of Ed. I just have a perspective, and my perspective is the perspective of an accountant and an educator. So hopefully that I can provide the board with some guidance that will help them make responsible decisions that are best for the kids. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Next up, Mrs. Cook.
I just wanted to say that I'm honored to be on the panel with a great group of candidates, and it really gives me great encouragement that there are so many people willing to step up. And the Board of Education over the past several years has done an incredible job of working together, and I have, regardless of what the election outcome is, I think it's good to know that several of us will be on the board. For those who don't know me, I've been in Newtown for 8 years. I moved here with my husband, our 3 boys, and my parents came soon after and now live in Sandy Hook. We chose Newtown because of the nature of the town, the historic Main Street, the library, and the schools, like many people. Those are the institutions, but it's really the people in Newtown that have made such a difference for me. It's the volunteers that volunteer for Odyssey of the Mind, who coach basketball, who coach soccer and hockey, those who work on PTAs tirelessly, and those who work on the Newtown Education Foundation. All of these people who make a difference. Those who volunteered at the Newtown Parks and Rec Carnival last weekend. And it's because of the people that I see volunteering in town that I want to be able to put myself forward and do similar things, similar good things for Newtown. And I hope that you'll support me in that effort.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. And register writing candidate, Mrs. Deborah Zukowski.
Hello, I've been a citizen of Newtown for 15 years. I've been a town volunteer for 12 plus years. We moved here, there were a couple of things that were very important to us. So we had 4 things on our criteria. Number 1, the schools had to be able to provide excellent education to a wide range of students. My children both stressed the school system in one way or another, and the schools did an absolute marvelous job with it. The second is there had to be a good library that my older one would be able to walk to, and our library is absolutely wonderful. The third is my husband had to be able to walk for his Saturday cup of tea, and we struck that one off. And the fourth will come to me eventually. But I grew up in a place called Ticonderoga, New York. We had 5,000 people in our town, related to 3/4 of them. The town was established roughly in the late 1700s. Well, Fort Ticonderoga, French and Indian War, right, Mr. History teacher? Absolutely. So well before 1755. My forefathers are loggers, sawmill people, trappers, all of that type. When we moved to Newtown, I was so happy. I felt like I was home again because the people were incredible. I would pick up garbage by the side of the road. I would have huge bags of filthy garbage sitting next to it. And this guy would drive up and say, "Let me take that." I'd be wandering around Easter time trying to find a newspaper, and at the bagel place, "Oh, here's 13 going, bagels. Go ahead." It was just such a wonderful town. So within 6 months, I knew that I wanted to be able to make this a better place. So I'm looking forward to our questions and hope that you agree that all 4 of us are very, very good, and the proper things we've said at the very beginning to the PTA representatives. Thank you so much for giving us all this opportunity.
Thank you, candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with the opportunity for each candidate to respond to previously submitted and determined questions. Once again, candidates, we do ask you to respect the 2-minute time limit for each response. We have Karen right here in the front row. We'll rotate through and across our candidate panel to begin to answer each question. And please, just continue to pass the mic as you have. For question number 1, Mr. D'Elia, you will have the first opportunity to speak. We've spoken to this perhaps in some of our introductions we just heard, but the first question for tonight, Why do you want to be on the Board of Education? Why do you pursue this opportunity to be on the Newtown Board of Education? The 2-minute timing begins.
To be honest with you, I want to do what's best for the kids. That's really my focus. That's always been my focus. I think that they are our most valuable assets. So the board is charged with many, many difficult decisions, financial, educational, some decisions that are tough and some decisions that are just the obvious decision. But the reason why I am running for the Board of Ed is to provide a voice that will give our children the best opportunity to be successful. And that's the simple answer. It's really a simple formula, because if you provide a child with opportunities to learn, with opportunities to grow, the world, they can have anything. And that's what I want to give them. And that would be my guide. I would always say, is this what's best for the children? Bottom line. Is that always going to be the obvious decision? No. Is that always going to be the easy decision? No. But I will always do what is best for Newtown's kids, period. So that's why.
Thank you, Mr. D'Elia. Mrs. Koo?
Similar to Mr. D'Elia, I also think that our primary goal is to make sure that students have the opportunities available to them to allow them to excel and learn in the best way possible. And there are really 3 pieces to that I think are important from my perspective. One is, I think that the personalized learning, that the initiative that has already been started in the district, I think really needs to continue. And that's a way to allow each student to have a voice and a choice and different pathways to get to the goals that they want to see in their careers. And I think that's a really important piece. The second piece that I think is really important is Newtown's voice at the state level and at the regional level. And I think that comes from being involved with organizations like CAVE, or serving on the board of directors at Advance, or participating in task forces at the state level, all of which are things that I think are things that give Newtown a voice, but also allows us as board members to come back to the board and tell our board members what's going on around the state. So I think that's another important piece. And then the third piece that I think is really important is the budget concerns. And I know that that's probably something we'll talk about further later, so I won't go into great detail. But I think that is something that's going to be very important. And I personally would like to have a part of talking about that process. And I think it's important that we have people with experience in that position to talk about what it is we can do as a board to mitigate some of the budget issues that I think are probably coming down the road.
Thank you, Mrs. Koo. Mrs. Zukowski?
I am the product of a good public education. My parents had high school diplomas. My grandparents had a 6th and an 8th grade diploma. Well, I guess they're not diplomas. I come from loggers, I come from sawmill operators, and I went to MIT because of a good public education. And my siblings all went to various schools, SUNY Buffalo, SUNY Plattsburgh, and Hobart. What we have now is we have parents who have actually seen their children achieve, who have actually seen their children flourish. I am a parent, I want to see my children flourish. I am a community member, I want to see your children flourish. That's why I'm running for the Board of Ed. One of the reasons why I think that I should be on the Board of Ed is I'm a very, very, some would say OCD type of person. I look at the details and I see the big picture. That's part of my training as an engineer. So I feel with my analytical skills that we can make sure that as much as possible in these very, very challenging times, that we can maintain the quality education that we have, but even more important, we can grow it in the way that Michelle was saying, to really personalize, to make sure that not only your child flourishes and your child flourishes, but to make sure that every child flourishes, so that when I go back to Ticonderoga, I can look around and I can say, you know, this is great. Education is really moving us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zukowski. And our final respondent to question number 1, Mr. Cruzen.
I have actually said a few times that I kind of blame Dr. Jackson for wanting to be on the Board of Ed. After one particularly challenging budget season, she said, we really should be working on getting you up onto the Board of Ed. Mainly because I had seen the administrative side of things. I knew how that end of things works. So fast forward 8 years later, I came back to Newtown with my own children, wanting to get them into the school system that I felt did a very good job with me and my brothers. And I came into a very challenging time. We were already starting discussions about, we had just finished the discussions about closing Holly. We were continuing further discussions about closing school. And I looked at everything going on and I said, I want a chance to be part of this discussion. I want to be part of the solution. I want to give back. So that was my encouragement to when the opportunity came up to get onto the Board of Ed and lend my own experiences, my own ability to analyze and look at the problem in front of us and all of the various viewpoints and come up with the best solution for not just my sons, but all of the students. I really want to help make sure that Newtown's education system stays as great and as well respected as it has been since I was in it. So that's why I want to continue to be on the Board of Education.
Thank you, candidates, for responding to question 1. For question 2, Mrs. Koo will have the first opportunity. We'll continue our rotation. Question number 2. Knowing the current capital improvement plan approved by the Board of Education, what do you think is the number 1 capital project that needs to be implemented ASAP? I'll repeat that. Knowing the current capital improvement plan approved by the Board of Education, what do you think is the number 1 capital project that needs to be implemented ASAP?
ASAP. Well, I know that it won't be implemented until after we get through the budget cycle. I must say that I am not involved in the capital. That is one of the committees that I do not participate in a whole lot. I do participate in policy. I participate in curriculum and instruction. And our capital improvement committee, which Debbie Wagner is on, has put forth that plan. And I know that we're looking at it tomorrow night to be approved. But I don't know that I would pick out any one project to be fast-tracked through the process.
Mrs. Zukowski.
As not a member of the Board of Education, it's an interesting question, but let me give you what my thought process is. Number 1, for capital improvement, health and safety, absolutely number 1. So the items on the capital improvement that deal directly with health and safety would be top of the list for me. Number 2 is always be, or I should say, never be penny wise and pound foolish. If we have something, imagine you've got a little drip in your sink faucet. Okay, if you fix that drip now, then you're not going to have to replace the floor underneath the sink faucet. If you don't fix that drip now, then that floor is going to cost you 10 to 15 times more than it would have been to fix the drip in the first place. So that's another piece of criteria, and I do not have the facts on which to make that decision for the items we currently have on our capital improvement. Number 3 is education is absolutely paramount. If there is something, one could say the Holly HB, that's still on the CIP, isn't it? That if you have a climate within a school that makes it so that the children cannot learn, then that would be the next thing up on my list of metrics in terms of determining what goes forward. So I'll stop with those three and pass the baton.
Mr. Cruzen?
I'm not sure if I 100% remember everything that's actually on the CIP that we agreed to, because I know there were a lot of projects on there. And the order that they were put in, I know a lot of work went into that order, and things were considered, because I remember asking questions and having questions answered as we discussed things as to where the hollow roof fell in the current plan. Personally, for me, and this might come a little bit because I have a soft spot for the school, but the one that I remember being sort of the top of the list for me is the boiler HVAC stuff that needs to be done at Ollie. So that, my feeling is that that's a high priority, and I'd like to see get it done. I don't want to see anything fast-tracked because I don't want to see us do anything improperly. I don't want to see anything fast-tracked and costing more money or not paying enough money to get it done properly. But if I had to pick one that I thought was the most important, that is the thing.
And Mr. Galileo?
Well, first of all, I was thrilled that I'm last to answer this question. I'm not on the board, so I'll be honest with you, I'm not overly privy on all this stuff. I would like to speak to one capital expenditure that I've been paying attention to, and that's the auditorium at the high school. And what I would like to say is that my expertise in financial accounting and auditing would play a significant role in helping manage some of these projects, or helping at least watch them. That project, actually one of the construction companies that's a main player in that contract, I was on the audit team. So I know how that works. I know how construction accounting works. I know how to read the contracts and make sure that we're getting the best deal. I know how to hold people accountable for what they're doing. And I think it's critical that with a financial background, someone on the board, and I'm not questioning anyone else, I'm just saying someone really understands these contracts and what we're getting into so that we can make sure that we're making the best decision.
Thank you, candidates. Moving on to question 3, Mrs. Zukowski, you will have the first opportunity to speak in response. Question number 3. Retaining great staff seems to have been a recent challenge in the Newtown Public Schools District. What do you think Newtown Public Schools can do differently to keep the best teachers in our district?
Number one is to try and understand what it is that's taking them away. Is it the climate of the school? Is it that they feel underappreciated? Is it that they feel undervalued? Is it that they were offered $10,000 more than we can offer them at a different school district? Those are very, very important. My sister's a teacher. My younger sister, my brother's wife is a teacher. I have friends who are teachers, and one of the things that they talk about is that they put in a lot of time, and sometimes they just really don't feel valued. They don't. There's a culture, at least in some of the schools, and I do not know, and I've heard that it's not actually a culture within the Newtown school, but there's a culture that, lets teachers who are tired, okay, who, just need to regenerate, be treated exactly the same as my sister. And what needs to happen is for those teachers, a real big emphasis needs to be placed to try and re-energize them, try and get them re-excited about being in the classroom and teaching every student in that classroom. So I would look in terms of the school climate, but again, from what I've heard, our school climate, if anything, is getting better. And then that will be the case. If it's that we don't pay our teachers enough, that's up to the taxpayers. We can pay them what we can pay them, but we can't really do much more. What we can do is try and educate the Newtown residents about the need for good teachers. Part of that would be, say, when we have kids go off to college, have them come back and actually critique from a point of their college. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Cruzen.
I think historically, Newtown has done a pretty good job of retaining teachers. I know that we have had some turnover, but I also know that I sat at a convocation and saw a number of 25-year awards given out. So we're doing something right in at least some areas because there are teachers that want to stay. I agree that it wouldn't hurt to look into the reasons why the teachers that leave do leave. Get a feel and get some data as to why you feel that you need to move on. Is it money? Is it you don't like the climate? Although we do a pretty good job of monitoring the climate. We have a full committee that does that. But it's good to have that data so that we can try to address any issues that might be coming up. I know we have a few issues currently that are being worked on, so I'm hoping that teachers will see any climate issues as being worked on or being resolved and not leave over that. As for the financial, I do know that our district doesn't always rank as the most highly paid in Connecticut, even in this area of Connecticut. I'm not sure how much we can do as far as paying, but maybe we can come up with ways to sort of make it worth not getting the extra, say, $10,000, but come up with some benefit that makes Newtown a great place to work and a reason to stay that's not necessarily monetary.
Mr. Villia.
As you all know, I'm a teacher, so I live teaching. Teachers don't become teachers for the pay. So school climate is absolutely critical. One thing that I've noticed about Newtown and that I admire is that they promote from within. And I think that that's something that should be fostered and continued here. Two of my daughter's teachers, two of my son's teachers, I believe this year, he's a freshman in high school, have their own I-2s, which is an administrative license, and they're offered opportunities to lead. So I think offering teachers an opportunity to lead and self-promote is critical. I also think continuing education is important. Teachers are not only teachers, but they're learners. Once you say that I can't learn anything else, that's when you're done. So you should always offer teachers an opportunity to grow and learn, because then they can pass that on to their children. And finally, regarding pay, it's tough. It's really tough. I would love to see some town-wide incentives, possibly trying to promote teachers living within the town. I'm sure there's something we can do to help teachers become community members, which many of them already are. But if we offer them incentives to live within the town, they will stay, because they'll be invested, because their kids will be in the schools. And I think those are some ideas that I would love to bring to the board and to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Villia. Mrs. Koo.
I think first I'd like to challenge the premise of the question that we do have teachers that are leaving in greater numbers than any other district. I don't know that that's especially true. It may have been true, and I can't recall if it was teachers or administrators that we're talking about.
It just says retaining great staff.
Staff, okay.
Retaining great staff.
Because I do think that that may have been true several years ago, but I think that since that time, there have been a lot of things put in place, including the Culture and Climate Committee, including aspiring administrators programs that allows teachers to do that professional development and administrators to look at ways to promote within the system. So I think that those things are improving, and I'm pretty proud of where the district is at this point. And I get that the pay scale, you compare one town to another, is an issue, and it will be an issue as the budget issues come up during discussions about what we're gonna do with the state issues. But as Mr. D'Elia is pointing out, I'm not sure that pay is always the most important thing. I do think that there's a huge amount of what the leadership at the top is doing and how that leadership trickles down to the staff and how they feel about what they're doing in the schools from day to day.
Thank you, candidates. We will move on to question number 4 of 5. Mr. Crusoe, you have first crack at this response. What specific topic or curriculum would you like to see added to the district that we don't yet have? Or is there an area that could use some strengthening? Once again, what specific topic or curriculum would you like to see added to the district that we don't yet have? Or talk about any area that could use strengthening.
Okay, that's a tough one, mainly because I've seen a lot of the ones that I'd like to have seen show up. I mean, we recently added the kindergarten, what's now K2 Spanish program to the elementary schools, although I definitely want to see that continue to expand in the grade levels. I saw us add theater-based, or I've seen that we've added the theater-based programs. We just revamped the video-based programs. So those were the areas that I was really into in high school that either didn't exist or needed revamping and bringing up to date. We've added computer science programs. Technology is my thing. So to see what we've done with the business education, computer science and all that stuff it's been great to see. So at the moment, I can't really think of any programs I definitely want to see added. I do want us to continue to evolve the business area of the high school and make sure that all those curriculums are up to date, relevant, current, and preparing the students that want to go into those programs to move on after high school and college and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Mr. D'Elia.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit of what Mr. Cruson said. For a 5th grader right now, when they graduate from college, there will be 2 million jobs in computer sciences that are out there. 2 million. And we're going to have to look overseas for those jobs if our kids aren't catching up. So I think there should be a concerted effort to help our children be ready for 21st century jobs. Some jobs aren't even there yet. Facebook wasn't a job 15 years ago. It wasn't. So I think that we have to constantly stress computer sciences and teaching children 21st century skills so that they're ready for what's ahead. Because as parents and community members, we want our children to be successful. We want our children to do well. We want our children to be happy. And the way that we can do that is by giving them every opportunity to succeed. And if we provide them with those critical 21st century skills, we will give them the skills that they need to be stars in the future. So I would focus on 21st century skills. All the other programs, I'm not saying they're diminished, I just think that there needs to be an overall focus on 21st century skills, making sure that our kids are keeping up with the kids in Norway and the kids in Europe and the kids in Asia, so that when they're applying for these global jobs, they're ready. And I really think that's important.
Thank you, Mr. D'Elia. Over to Mrs. Koo.
So I can't think of one specific course or program that I'd like to see added. But I think along the lines of the personalized learning, I think that that is something that is so important and it affects every aspect of the entire school system. And I think that's, as I mentioned earlier, it involves students setting their own pace and their own goals. And I think that offers the opportunities to students to figure out what it is that they're interested in, where they want to go. So it would involve students deciding what questions to ask, what texts to read, what projects they're going to use to demonstrate their competencies in different areas. And it also involves following different pathways. So if you look at our math pathways that we currently have in the district, there are so many ways for one student to get from 4th grade math through the high school and a variety of courses at a variety of paces that they can get through that program. And I think that's a part of this personalized learning, as well as eventually looking at moving away from seat time in classes to determine whether a student is competent in something, but rather looking at whether they truly are competent in an area before they move on to the next area. So I think that's important. And we have so many examples of that. So the senior year Experience 21, which is just, it's amazing that students can look into something that they're interested in and they can use to demonstrate that they've learned something by their senior year and that this is something that they really are proud of and want to move on in life with that behind them. So I think that those are the pieces that I'd like to see us focus on as a district.
And Mrs. Zukowski.
One of the things that make people successful at all different places in our economy is the ability to communicate, the ability to actually come out and say, this is what is going on, this is why it's good for what we need, this is why it's possibly going to hold us back. So courses in public speaking, we have a lot of professors out there who, when they first start their courses, they're shaking their shoes because they never were able to get comfortable with public speaking. To be able to have public speaking going into the 5th and 6th grade, or perhaps even earlier, and treating it like a game. Hey, let's all get up and say something, and you can write it out at the night or the weekend before, and let's just have fun. But you're going to get up, you're going to public speak, and by the way, we're all going to clap afterwards. To just instill in them a confidence of communicating. We currently have what at college is called capstone projects, but I think you called it something else, where the students will look and say, okay, well, here is my love of what I want to do. Okay, I'm going to do something, and then I'm going to tell everybody about it. So courses like that are very, very important. We do have some of those. So I actually, 2 years, I tutored some high school students in how to write web programming. It was actually interactive web programming. And what we did is we took data from the police department on accidents. And I will have you know the place with the highest density of accidents is the Newtown High School parking lot, just in case you're curious. But we then made it so we had a program where you could say filter on deer accidents, filter on injuries. But what was important about those projects, I think Pedro Gamey was the one who made those possible. What was important about those projects was afterwards. I'm done. If you want to know, ask me.
We've gone through 4 of our 5 questions. Here is our final predetermined question. Ms. Leah, you'll have first crack at this response. Knowing that enrollment is exceeding high projections and that elementary enrollment is actually increasing, what are your thoughts on space usage in the school system?
Space usage. That's an interesting question. I was under the impression that enrollment was declining, but looking at the recent budget. But space usage is critical for keeping expenditures down. We have to be careful, though. We have to make sure that we're not filling rooms with one person. We have to make sure that we're actually using the space adequately. That's a tough decision that you would have to really look at the numbers and see what they say. You would have to really analyze the data, ask for hard numbers, what are the costs involved, and what is best for the kids. And that's really what I would do. I guess that would be my comment on that, is that I would ask to see serious data, what is being used, what is not being used, what is cost effective, but also what is best for the kids. Because if we're spending money on things that aren't useful for kids, then I don't think we should spend money on those. But if we are spending money on things that are useful for kids, then I think that we should. So that's my comment on that.
Thank you. Mrs. Cooch.
Can you repeat the question?
Knowing that enrollment is exceeding high projections and that elementary enrollment is actually increasing, what are your thoughts on space usage in the school system?
I do think that we are, as a community, we've heard about declining enrollment for so long that that's just the mindset we have. It's declining enrollment, but the increase at the elementary school is, well, this is just 1 year. I think it will continue for a while, and we are going to be looking at how are we going to accommodate those extra students in the elementary schools, and that will be a discussion that we'll have to have at a community level again. And I think it's important that we have people who can have those conversations with facts and we have level-headed discussions. Meanwhile, at the high school, we're going to see over the next 10 years a decline in enrollment, and we're going to see space open up. So I think that's an important place where the Board of Education is going to have discussions about what is it that you can do with the space at the high school. And I don't want to mislead anybody into thinking that we're going to be able to have these great revenue sources or that we're going to save money by finding tenants for the high school, because I think that's a very difficult proposal. But I do think it's something that, as a Board of Ed, that we should be looking at things that can complement the education that we have in the high school. I think that would be the responsible thing to do.
Thank you, Mrs. Koo. Mrs. Zukowski.
So, put to the best use, I'm going to answer maybe a slightly different question, and I'll be honest that that may be the case. My daughters went through the high school just before the addition was built. What happened is I had one child who had an 8-period class, an 8-period day, that had 4 study halls because they couldn't find the classes to fill the time. So half her day was going to be spent in study hall. So now step back a little bit and say, how do we decide how we're going to be what we're going to do with our space? One of the things that people looked at was they looked and said, well, we're going to do a cost analysis. Okay, well, a cost analysis should be including both dollars and cents, but it should be including educational loss in our students too. So when you don't want, this is a place also where I would look and say, penny wise and pound foolish. You close something down, you lose the education of 3 or 4 or 5 classes of students going through because you had someone who wanted to learn. Luckily, we were able to work out something if she only had 2 study halls. But you look and say, what would it cost? What would we save? How long do we expect? Because it's only going to be temporary. And what is it going to cost educationally? We need to have that discussion, and that education part has to be in there. In terms of utilizing the space that may become empty, I think that would be a very creative discussion to have at the Board of Ed, and I would be very happy to be a part of that discussion. And we can't say anything more than that here because we don't want to plant seeds that may never actually see the light of day.
Thank you. Mr. Cruson.
I've said a few, well, first of all, I was really happy to see the current enrollment and see that we've exceeded what our estimates were again, and that people are flocking back into town, for lack of a better term. I'm cautiously optimistic that we can continue that trend, but I'm not going to fool myself into thinking it's a sure thing. I mean, come next year, we might be back to the high projection again, hitting high projection, or who knows what will happen next year. So I've said a few times to multiple different people that I'd love to find ways to utilize the high school, the space that we now have at the high school and that we know we will have in the future, to bring in programs and other things that we might be able to use to generate revenue. I'm not saying it's a sure thing, but it's a discussion that I would love to be able to participate in and see if we can come up with creative solutions, things that would supplement our administrative programs, but also things that might bring in their own revenue or some other benefit to the schools. And to sort of piggyback off of Deb's comments about her daughter who had 4 study halls. And when I was coming through the high school, I had a year where I had 2 study halls, and there was the space then to do different things. I spent 1 study hall, I spent a bunch of time down at the library working on what was not officially a senior project, but it was an education advanced program that was like the senior projects. I spent another one of those study halls working down in the computer repair classroom, because I was a member of that. I was a member of that program, and it was an interest of mine. So hopefully we can use space to do that kind of stuff. So.
Thank you, candidates. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Mrs. Koo will begin this, and then we'll have our final rotation right across the panel. So once again, each candidate 2 minutes to make a closing statement of your design and choice.
So, of any elected official in the United States of America, boards of education members are very unique in that we are directly responsible for a group of people who do not vote at all. So we're entrusted with the tax dollars, and here primarily from residents and businesses, with the promise that we are going to help children become productive members of society in some far and future date. I believe that I can contribute to the well-being of that population with my desire to be inclusive in decision-making. And I also think that I have a cooperative spirit that goes towards those discussions about doing the best by our students. And I hope it is with that cooperative spirit that I can help our town flourish, whether we're dealing with tough decisions about declining enrollment or increasing enrollment or celebrating our successes. And I hope that you see the value in what I have to offer.
Education matters. Without good education, then we're going to falter as a community and as a nation. Strong in our American meritocracy, I want to make sure that the leaders of tomorrow are coming from all sorts of families of today. So I am a big proponent of trying to get the children to be able to make the most of what they have inside of them. And I would go for all of the educational programs that really help make them flourish. Now, in terms of why you should consider me a good board member, I am fiscally responsible. I don't have a couch in my house. I do have a futon, that's from college, but I don't have a couch. But it's not the couch that matters. What matters is who sits on that couch. I am totally non-political. I am an engineer. I am extremely objective. I'm maybe to a fault. I will look at the information that's available, knowing that we never have complete information, but sometimes you have to make decisions with the best information that you have at hand. But I will continue to ask questions. When things don't quite line up, I'll say, but this and that seems to contradict a little bit. Could you help me understand it? I am very, if you ask anybody who's worked with me, I work extremely well with people on the boards. And I'm very much a pragmatic just getting late, a pragmatic problem solver. I look and I will say, how will this help us provide our education in a way that our town will support? So with that, I pass the baton.
Thank you, Mrs. Zukowski. Thank you previously, Mrs. Koo. Mr. Cruson.
I see the Board of Education, well, I've seen in the past boards of education that have not worked well together. When I was appointed, I went in with the worry that that might be true, but I found a board that we currently have a board that does work well together. They at least listen to each other, even if we don't always agree with each other. But we face interesting challenges, and I can see how other boards met those challenges, and our board meet the challenges, and I enjoy being part of being able to meet those challenges. I enjoy taking in all of the data, all of the opinions, everything, compiling it, and coming to a conclusion for what will be best for the students and what will best contribute to the education in Newtown. That's really what it comes down to, is being able to analyze everything and come to that conclusion, because in the end it matters what is best for students and what contributes to getting them the best education that will prepare them for their futures and such past Newtown's education system.
And Mr. D'Elia.
I offer a unique skill set, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I know education and I know finance. So I really feel that I can offer a perspective to the board, respectfully, that will help us make really smart decisions for our town and for our children. And that's why I'm doing this. I love this town. I love the children of this town. My daughter and my son have grown up in the schools. I want to offer that. If I am on the Board of Ed and I see something that I know is right, I feel that I have the ability to convince the board, or at least make a very strong case for why this is the right decision. And that's what I'm going to try to do. I am going to try to be assertive for what's best for the kids and for what's best for the town. Michelle, Deb, and Dan are wonderful people, by the way. Absolutely wonderful. And I've known them. I've gotten to know Deb and Dan recently, and I've actually known Michelle, even though I didn't know her, that I knew her through soccer. Our sons play together. They're wonderful people. And this is a big commitment. So I think it's a win-win. But my perspective is, I know education and I know finance. So when those decisions need to be made, I'm going to be able to look at them from both sides and then hopefully guide the board, or at least strongly state my point of view for what's best for the town and what's best for the kids. That's it. Okay? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for each and every one of our candidates for doing great for Newtown. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't have to worry about our 8:30 hard stop time with one fewer candidates than originally planned. We were able to get through our forum and panel discussion tonight from our candidates very swiftly. On behalf of the Newtown PTAs and PTSA, we'd like to thank the community for attending and for our candidates for participating in this forum. Thank you very much. The other thank yous we have, thank you to Chris Bonacci and Karen Smiley, the Holly School co-presidents of their PTSA. The PTA, Kathleen Young, the NHS PTSA, State Rep. Mitch Belinsky in the House, our interim superintendent, Dr. Lori Rodriguez. And it's the teacher in me reminding the community members out there, you can see the 2017 ballot at newtown-ct.gov. I know my classes are starting to look at it specifically starting tomorrow. See these candidates and so many more for the local races here in Newtown. But let's give it up for our candidates, Michelle Enrique, Deb Z, Dan Tusa, and David D'Elia. Thank you so much for attending, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes the Board of Ed Candidates Informational Forum.